Philanthropology and the Good Road is brought to you by AMD, Advanced Micro Devices.
Yeah, I will be very honest with you and your audience right now. There are, what's today, the 27th of the month? Mm-hmm. I have 3 kids, a wife. There are a couple of my bills that I can't pay in 2 days. Right now, 2 days away.
Dude, yeah.
2 days away. There are bills that I cannot pay 2 days from now.
Right.
I have a plan for what I'm going to do. They'll be a little late. I've got this thing. I'm going to move this around. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Right.
I'm going to beg, borrow, and steal from so-and-so to give to so-and-so. And that's the last 3 years how it's been. And people aren't ready for that.
That was an interview with our good friend Nick Lepar, who has a podcast called Let's Give a Damn. And the brutal honest truth is that most people we've met along the good road would be very familiar with this struggle.
Yeah, the struggle is real.
It is not just a saying on the back of a beat-up 79 VW van with hippie bumper stickers on.
I mean, it's something we've lived with every day. And it sets up today's conversation, no margin, no mission. Philanthropology is the companion piece to our TV show on public television called The Good Road.
I'm Earl Bridges.
And I'm Craig Martin, and we capture stories of mercenaries, missionaries, and misfits.
It's a raw look at the messy and complicated business of global philanthropy, and Craig and I set off around the world to places where people are doing good.
It's Batman, not Superman. Check out The Good Road on your local PBS station starting in April.
So why is it so hard to do good? And why is it so hard to do the really hard work that we need today and make these ventures financially sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, we've just been talking about the stock market. And,
right.
But the program, The Good Road, has been a project that's been really risky for us. It's probably the riskiest thing I've ever done.
Right. Well, actually, today you talk about the stock market. You know what? We look like financial savants. We took all of our money and stuck it in this television show called The Good
Exactly.
Road. But we're all in, man. Our families are all in. We have creative partners and investors. We have a community that believes in the mission, but if truth is told, it takes a heavy toll on our families and our friends.
Yeah, but we want to do this.
So what are we going to try to do at the end of the day? What do we hope to accomplish? I mean, really, this is a question for you. What do you think? What are we doing, Greg?
I don't know, man.
I mean, really, what do we hope at the end of the day with the Good Road?
I mean, at the end of the day, I would love for people to take the efforts that we've, worked so hard on and actually learn from it and be active in their communities. That's kind of my goal.
Nick Lepar, on his Let's Give a Damn podcast, he asks a question at the end of every podcast. He says, what do you want for your epithet? The eulogy.
Exactly, the eulogy.
So when this Good Road is dead and gone, what do we want them to take away from what we tried to do with the Good Road?
Yeah, and I think my response was I want to emulate the kindness and love of my father and just help other people. I mean, it's just kind of part of who we are at the core.
So it seems like there's an infinite amount of information uploaded to the internet every day. Sometimes it's hard to know what's accurate or factual or believable.
That's exactly why we love having the Great Courses Plus. This is valuable, in-depth content we can trust.
This streaming service offers thousands of objective, unbiased lectures from respected professors who really know their stuff, offering their unique, expert perspectives on topics ranging from the science of evolution to the mysteries of human behavior, even how to learn a new language or how to cook, much, much more.
And with the Great Courses Plus app, we can watch or listen anytime, anywhere. We highly recommend the course Understanding the Dark Side of Human Nature.
This course tackles big questions. What is evil, and how can we be sure that we don't cause suffering? And an even bigger question, why do we kill?
Yeah, well, that's the royal we with the whole why do we kill, right? It's a really great topic that you won't want to miss. So sign up for the Great Courses Plus today. Don't wait any longer. Go to thegreatcoursesplus.com/thegoodroad.
Remember, thegreatcoursesplus.com/thegoodroad. Let's chat with another longtime friend of ours who is one of the most amazing women that you will ever know.
Patty is a lacrosse mom who lives in Farmington, Michigan. She has 6 boys, and on the surface, she may look like any other neighbor you run into at your local Sam's Club. But there's much, much more going on here.
I think that for the listeners, it would be interesting to know how it was that we first came to know each other, all 3 of us.
Oh
So,
my
Patty, maybe you, with the revisionist history, can describe what you first remember of your classmate Craig
Yes,
and
be kind, please.
the much older and wiser Earl Bridges.
much older. Yeah. Oh my gosh, a trip down memory lane. So obviously it was in Bangkok, Thailand at
Yep. No dates, please.
yeah. No, I'm trying my best to stay away from that. Craig, I don't remember first meeting you, but you were always there. I mean, I remember I just remember a lot of funny situations, and you just always brought a lot of laughter and fun to all of the situations. I think we might have had earth science together.
Okay, so tip for everyone in high school right now. Don't bully, don't be mean to anyone, because you never know how important these early relationships are going to be later in life.
Again, Patty, you've got to describe, your father was the ambassador for Argentina to Thailand, and what were the other countries as well?
Yeah, he was ambassador to Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and Burma all at the same time. And
Right.
we couldn't travel to Burma at the time, but he would go back and forth. So we were based in Bangkok, and then he would travel to the different locations and take us whenever we could go when we were off from school.
Mhm.
But Burma was always a kind of mystical to me because he always talked about it and talked about how beautiful it was and how much he loved it. So it was one.
And later on, I mean, there's some interesting stories about when you went back to Yangon and I guess Mandalay and other places to see some of the places that you knew your father had, gone to. But your father was a career diplomat. So can you, just briefly talk about, I mean, it's such a crazy backstory.
Yeah, he was Argentinian, and he was a career diplomat for Argentina, and focused mostly on Asia. So we got to move around quite a bit, but we did have 2 years where he was posted to the Vatican, and we got to live in Rome, which was wonderful. All the experiences were wonderful.
And you actually met 3 popes, am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Not everybody can say that.
I know. What a privilege, right? We were there for 23 months. And in the course of those 23 months, it was Pope Paul VI, Pope John Paul I, and Pope John Paul II. So
Wow.
a lot of memories of going out and watching the smoke come out of the chimney in the Vatican to see if a new pope had been chosen or not. And the black smoke meant that there wasn't a pope yet, and the white smoke meant that there was. And just a lot of really interesting memories. And
The fact that you outlived 3 popes, I think, is interesting.
3 popes? I mean, how many people do you know, Earl, that have met 3 popes?
Only Patty. And despite the fact that we all came from different worlds, as kids, I mean, we didn't care about any of that. The money, the race, the religion. We were all just friends.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool, actually, that years later we all ended up working for the greater good in our different ways.
Yeah, so it's an unlikely pairing of these missionary kids and this international, ambassador's daughter who skirted around the world, in the lap of luxury.
But this is the interesting thing, as we are the 3 of us now very close friends, that's how the International School of Bangkok was. You were around people, especially in the space of philanthropy or, whether it was politics or foreign service. You had friends who were in all kinds of, we had, the way we grew up during the Vietnam War, and then, of course, the situation in Cambodia with the Khmer Rouge. We knew people who were like working with refugees. We knew people who were working for big corporate offices.
Yeah.
But it all kind of swirled around international relations, international philanthropy, and it's kind of fun to see this all kind of circle back around.
Well, and I find it really interesting. When I came to the U.S., there was so much talk about diversity, and it was something I really had never thought about because our environment was always diverse, and our classmates and our friends were always from all walks of life, every country, different backgrounds, but you really didn't think about that. So it was really, if you reflect on it now, what a rich opportunity and rich upbringing to be in that situation where you're not thinking about differences. It's all commonalities and and yet everybody's bringing a different perspective, a different religion, culture, nationality to the classroom.
Even socioeconomics. I mean, it was, I used to lament Earl and I joke about the fact that, we had to wear the Bata shoes while some of the our classmates and guys on the basketball team were wearing Nikes every day. but,
Yeah.
but nobody really discouraged anybody because of their socioeconomics or their family's background or whatever.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're in this backdrop of, really surrounded by a lot of poverty. And I think you always, as a child, you're confronted by that. You go to the Sunday market and you're walking around beggars.
Right.
And so anyone that grew up with that kind of background, wherever they grew up in the world, you're constantly affronted, I guess, by what do you do? And so your career, I think, is interesting, Patty, because then you moved into kind of the healthcare world, specifically in more of a planning thing.
So what's interesting to me is that despite our unique backgrounds, I mean, Patty was really this kind of well-placed community, and ours was arguably a lot missionary kids, more humble beginnings. There was this common desire to kind of leverage our background and make something really useful and interesting out of our lives in the vein of kind of helping people.
Yeah, so it's a good question. How much does your background inform your future?
Yeah, and I think that background sort of creates a global citizenship for us. A lot of us who grew up in international schools become much more aware of relationships that are cross-cultural and cross-national, and that we're part of a greater environment than our local communities alone. So yeah, my interest was in healthcare, but I knew I couldn't be a doctor or a nurse because blood is not something I deal with very well. So the natural area to look into was healthcare administration, and that's what I ended up studying. I got a master's in healthcare administration with a focus on hospitals. And again, coming from that global background, really had an interest in working beyond borders. And so
Yeah, so you've worked in, I don't know how many countries, a lot of
30.
countries.
Yeah, over 30.
And a lot of these countries are again, they're far flung. You've got, we all did a trip and went to Nepal and Myanmar and Vietnam, all of which you had contacts with professionally.
Right.
But since then, I know that you've worked in places like Beirut and, Iraq and Kazakhstan and I don't know where all. Just, it's not France and Germany and Spain is what I'm saying.
So I'm pretty sure that in Patty's case, her dad's career was influential, but her relationship with her sister or her other siblings was really probably a more direct contributor to her work today.
Yeah, I remember a story she told us about when her sister was sick in Pakistan, and that was a foreshadow into the work she does now.
So my sister, Bella, had a blood clotting condition. And my dad was posted as ambassador to Pakistan at the time. So she had to go weekly to the hospital to get her blood drawn and do some blood tests. And one week I decided to go with her and my mom. And we went to, what was considered one of the better hospitals at the time, and walked in. Of course, it was very crowded. Walked through inpatient hallway to get to where she needed to go. And there was open drainage running down the hallway where the sewage from the rooms was draining out to. Got to the doctor's exam room, and he pulled out a syringe and a needle from his drawer, drew her blood, and wiped it and put it back in the drawer. And I was young at the time, but I thought, this just doesn't seem right. And so as we left, again, we walked through the waiting room and it was quite crowded, but there was a young girl about my age who I made eye contact with. And it was one of those moments that you just remember in life. It was a moment where I felt like this is a temporary situation for us, but this is permanent for her. And we really can and should do better than this. And it's not to be derogatory to the healthcare services there or to the people who were working very hard with limited resources. there was a lot of compassion and care and so forth. But the challenge is not having the resources that you need to do what you need to do in the way that you want to do it.
Yeah. It's just, and it goes back to this concept of, it's not, I guess, surprising from a Western standpoint to think of Pakistan or Uganda or Nepal or any of these other places that have these situations to work on, but it pivots around, when you have wealth and money, and you can have a very different access to the healthcare.
So here's where the rubber meets the road. If you don't have money, you just can't do good.
No money, no honey.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, no margin, no mission.
True.
So this is where it starts to get, I think, interesting, because the topic today, I think I first heard the phrase, Patty, from you, and that you mentioned one of your, I guess, mentors or people would say is that, if there's no margin, there's no mission.
Yeah.
So the best intentions get stuck by what the financial realities of the world are.
Right.
And, you've seen that at GHSN and you've seen that at GHC, but, what's your perspective on, that?
There's so much good work that can be done. And a lot of it is limited by lack of resources. So for me, it's important that the work we do be meaningful, be impactful, and be sustainable. And of those three, sustainable is the most difficult.
And why is that?
It's having access to resources, whether they're human resources, financial, material. The challenge, I think, especially in the world of charity, is that I think public perception in general is that when you're a charity, you're not a business, or you don't function as a business, or maybe you shouldn't function as a business. When at the end of the day, if you don't apply the principles that you need in a business setting, it's very hard to be sustainable and do the work that you need to do. So you still have to be efficient. You still have to be mission focused. You still have to generate revenue. It's how that revenue is treated within the charity.
So, you see, it's all about the money, money, money.
It is. In fact, we include the word profit in the name of an organization that's ultimately just trying to do good.
Yeah, and I think even the term nonprofit is so misleading because, and I found that working internationally, I learned that because a lot of organizations I would work with overseas, if I mentioned we're a nonprofit, the thought was, oh, you're not making money. And you have to make money to be sustainable. But we don't call it profit in the nonprofit world. We call it a margin. But essentially, it's the same thing. And it's what helps you grow as an organization. And obviously, you treat it differently. You reinvest it in the organization instead of distributing it out to shareholders or owners. But you still have to generate a margin in order to be sustainable. And that's part of the struggle, I think. For example, with Global Health Charities, we rely entirely on donations and volunteers. And that's a very difficult model. So we're trying to find ways now to generate revenue that will contribute to the continued mission of the organization.
This episode of Philanthropology has been made possible by Advanced Micro Devices.
AMD. They're in our tribe of do-gooders, and we're excited to have them along on this journey of doing good in the world.
AMD is helping solve the world's toughest and most interesting challenges around climate action, quality education and good health, and well-being.
Tomorrow's breakthroughs start with the determination and inspiration of today.
Trust us, if you're going to do good, you need some smart people in your tribe.
Yeah, people smarter than you and me for sure. You heard a clip from Nick, who's the host of a podcast called Let's Give a Damn.
Yeah, he's one of the most compassionate guys we know. In fact, if we just had the tornadoes in Nashville, and all of his Insta posts are about him helping or highlighting the needs of that community.
Yeah, his podcast is another example of storytelling about doing good.
The premise is I want to share stories with people, and the people represented in the stories are people who saw something wrong in the world and gave a damn about it. And
best name ever. Dude, it's the best name ever.
You've said that. I think so as well. I'm still trying to figure out why it hasn't. And this is part of the conversation today. Like it's a constant battle trying to figure out like what why isn't something growing? Why, everybody's saying this should be big and it should be this and it should be that. And like, what am I missing? Everybody's so distracted and there's so much going on. There's so many places to put our attention, right? And so it's really hard to figure that out. But yes, I do love the name because it's Give a Damn is obviously, usually it's used in a negative context, right? It's usually like, exactly. I don't give a damn. Lately, it's kind of, it's come over and people start saying I give a damn about this. But I was 4 years ago when name popped into my head. I said I want it to be explicitly like a communal thing. This is not me. I don't want people to ever feel judged. Hey, go give a damn.
Right.
Right? I want to say let's. Right. It's going to take each and every one of us. And so, yeah, telling those stories, and as the podcast evolved and grew, we're starting to have other offerings, like we do social impact consulting. We're starting local chapters.
So for a guy like Nick, who has access to well-known celebrities like Chelsea Clinton, Rainn Wilson, Dwight, Schrute from The Office, yeah. Josh Radnor of How I Met Your Mother, he's got these great conversations about giving a damn, and yet he struggles to make all this work.
That's the battle for me right here with this podcast, talking about, no money, no mission, because the big names, like you say, will get you the ears, which will get you the sponsorships, will get you the dollars, and I'm sure all of them or many of them are very good. But on the other side, following your heart with the people that really feel like makes a change, where it's really hard to make this commercially viable on that side, that balancing act is what this whole podcast is about. So thinking about, what does it take to make a difference in a person's life? What does it take? You need a platform, you need whatever, but what does it take? It has to be commercially viable. Why? Because unfortunately, almost everything around us is validated by a numeric number.
Yep.
We talk about trophy hunting, and one of the things on that is, it's not the value of a kangaroo and how cute a koala bear is or something like that. In the hunting world, it's all tagged on what is the trophy value of that animal, if you were to kill it or whatever. And all of a sudden, that whatever you feel love or hate for an animal or something like that gets boiled down to a dollar figure. That shit just that ruins this whole thing for me. So no money, no mission. How do you do the money? How do you do the mission? You know what it's like to be a publisher and really trying to put your content. I know what it's like, but what's the answer? The economics, go hardcore. What do you feel happen?
Earl, I have no idea.
Sound familiar?
Yeah. I mean, Earl, we have no idea how our own projects are going to play out. I mean, how are we going to make it sustainable? How are we going to get our money back?
Yeah. Maybe we'll make a ton of money, but at the end of the day, baby needs new shoes,
He did highlight one very important fact. That's how important family is in all of this.
The last 3 years have been, I thank God in all of my lucky stars that my wife is still, deeply in love with me and that she wants to stay with me, because these last 3 years have not been easy. I literally have seen marriages fall apart over less shit than we've been through in the last 3 years.
Right.
The ups and the downs, the thinking this is going to happen. We have this in common, that we want to do TV stuff, right? 3 years ago, I got my first in with a production company. They wanted me to come talk through stuff and pitch, different ideas. And I thought at that point, I was thinking, well, this is a great sign. It's not a great sign at all. I mean, it is, but you need to do 1,000 more of those before one actually happens, right? And so that more than I do, because you actually have a TV show coming out. But so I went to that meeting, and then that got me into 0.0, which is Anthony Bourdain's
company. Yeah.
And I got in there, and they were super excited. It was actually a couple months after he died, where I think they were probably simultaneously mourning his death and also saying we need him to make more shows that make money. And that was going places. They several meetings, several different pitches, and then my guy got fired. And boom, that conversation is dead. Right. Nobody else there knows who I am or cares about me. So that's done. And so it has been 3 years of, whether we're talking TV or podcasting or on the going on the metrics thing you just said a few minutes ago. Starting a year ago, I had publishing houses hit me up for, you need to write a book. Like, this is amazing. You need to write a book. Okay, cool. So what do I need? What do you need from me before then? Well, we need to see your social media numbers kick up a little bit. And I have, I'm definitely not a high, let's just say on Twitter, I have 5,500, followers.
So back to the topic. No margin, no mission.
But again, somehow we've flipped it in America and said, yeah, your success is measured by how much money you made. Dude, you know how much money that guy has? that's the conversation. You're like, well, I guess I ought to go meet that guy, right?
Yeah.
So again, you have a podcast called Let's Give a Damn. I love it. I love it because it's people that are really pouring their lives into trying to make a difference, and it's aspirational. And I say it's aspirational because you can only aspire for so long before the economics kick in, and you may not be able to do what you want to do. So the learnings, I'd love to know whatever learnings, dude, just you got to tell me. You right now, my guru. Brother, where's the answer?
So this is my experience. The last 3 years, I've been I've lacked a tremendous amount of focus. So I've been trying to do too many things. And again, coming out of this nonprofit space, I thought, well, I can just take whatever I was doing, bring it into here, it'll work. And what's so funny is, here's what's funny about what I'm sort of building is like my time, I know what my time is worth. So this is the battle I'm going through. I have several coaching clients right now that pay me anywhere from $200 to $300 an hour for me to talk with them. I don't think I'm saying anything that smart. Hopefully they're not listening right now because they're paying me that money. But I've had someone pay me as much as $500 an hour for me to like. They think my time is valuable, so they'll talk and I'll say something back and we'll bounce stuff back and forth. And so what I rack my brain over each and every day is like, how do I?
So brother, our listeners are waiting. What's the answer?
You obviously can't sidestep the money influence.
What's the root of all evil?
It doesn't grow on trees, as
you
they
can't,
say.
And you can't take it with you.
No, you can't. And you have to spend money to make money.
And if you don't have money, you really can't further your mission.
So take our advice and follow your heart, but surround yourself with people who can help you financially.
Philanthropology is brought to you by First Republic. Since 1985, First Republic has had just one goal: deliver extraordinary service that always goes beyond client expectations.
Because no two clients are alike, First Republic designs financial solutions for individuals and businesses that are customized to help meet your needs and goals.
Reach out today and you'll be connected with a dedicated banker who will be your primary point of contact throughout your relationship with the bank. You can call or email your banker at any time for advice or to get help with whatever arises.
Because they understand your total financial picture, your banker can recommend the services and products that are best suited to you or your business.
And they're committed to staying objective, so it's always about what makes sense for you at every stage and not about what's most profitable.
If you're ready to discover how a personalized approach to banking can make a meaningful difference in your personal and business outcomes, visit firstrepublic.com to learn more.
Member FDIC. So next podcast is the last podcast of season 1 of Philanthropology.
And we're going to sum up what we've learned along the way, and we're probably going to end up with as many new questions as answers.
Yeah, so stay tuned for announcement on season 2 in the coming weeks, where we bring back old guests and some of the tips that we learned.
And best of all, we're going to talk to a guest who you won't want to miss, named Vu Lei. He runs a blog called Nonprofit AF. Google him in the meantime.
Yeah, and make sure you listen to this season's last episode. It will drop on April 7th. Which is an auspicious day for us.
So why is it auspicious, Earl?
Well, the day before April 6th is going to be the launch date for the Good Road television show that we have been waiting for forever. It's going to be available on a PBS station in your area, and it's going to be airing April and May.
And beyond.
That's right.
We're pretty excited to bring you some incredibly compelling visual stories in places like Thailand and Myanmar.
Join us on an expedition across Kenya as we wind up on a remote island in Tanzania called Pemba.
But wait, there's more. We visit a neighborhood that is both compelling and extremely dangerous. No, it's not Damascus, Syria.
At times you'll feel like you're in a war zone, though, because it's a small community outside of Mobile, Alabama, called Alabama Village.
And watch our very first production that started us on the good road. It was a trip we took early on, me with a camera and Earl with his wit.
Yeah, and on that trip, we set out to discover why a couple of brilliant doctors from the UK would give it all up and settle with their 3 daughters in a remote part of Uganda. Underpaid and understaffed, everything is a challenge.
And speaking of trips, stay tuned after the credits to hear this episode's road trip. It's a favorite device we used in episode number 6.
The Philanthropology Podcast is recorded at In Your Ear Studios in Richmond, Virginia, with direction from producer Carlos Chafin, engineering help from Andrea Steffel, soon to be Bukite.
Earl and I also get creative direction from Andy Dunsing, the Good Road Public Television Show. The theme music for Philanthropology was created by Jordan Martin of the band Door Mountain and can be found on iTunes.
We also want to thank all of our do-gooders who gave us their time, support, and gray matter.
And finally, we want to thank our original investors in all of this, our wives and kids. Specifically our wives who put up with us, Pam Bridges and Erica Martin.
And to all the girls I've loved before. So, if you remember our backstory, Craig and I had the privilege to grow up in Bangkok, Thailand. We went to the International School of Bangkok, or ISB, where we became good friends.
At ISB, we had a bunch of friends who loved to reminisce about our time together.
So we leave you with some memories from friends who loved laughing with us and sometimes at us.
All right. So, Patty, tell me that memory that you had.
So just delivering the birth kits and the trip that we did when we were in Nepal and at the last minute ended up going to Gorkha. Mm-hmm. And we were crammed into the car with the birth kits and our overnight gear and all of Craig's filming equipment and cameras and driving along those cliff sides. And I just remember, I think all of us, our fists were pretty tight driving to Gorkha. And it was getting dark and we had tried to get there before dark. But I remember our driver telling us not to worry because drivers on the road in Nepal communicate with each other with their headlights and their horns. And surely enough, within maybe 10 minutes of him saying that, we see him pulling apart the horn in the car and trying to rewind. and I think none of us wanted to ask what was going on, but eventually we asked, and his horn had broken. So we were relying on the headlights, and then every so often he'd take apart the horn and start rewiring it again.
That was the best trip ever.
Oh gosh!
Oh, awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Patty.